How's everybody doing today? Today I'd like to talk to you about starting a consulting business. This is a little different than just starting a regular online business. Now, the dictionary defines a consultant as an expert in a particular field that works as either an advisor to a company or to an individual. That sounds pretty vague, doesn't it? Well, unless you've been in a coma for the last decade, you probably have a pretty good idea what a consultant is and what they do. Now, businesses certainly understand what they do because in 1997, U.S. businesses spent over $12 billion on consulting. More people are getting into consulting today because technology's made it easier to do it. Now, a consultant's job is to consult. Nothing more, nothing less. It's that simple. There's no magic formula or no secret that makes one consultant more successful than another. But what separates a good consultant from a bad one is their passion and their drive for excellence. And yeah, good consultants should be knowledgeable about the subject that they're consulting about. It does make a difference. But in this day and age, anybody can be a consultant. All you need to discover is what your particular gift is. For example, are you comfortable working around computers? Do you keep up with the latest software and hardware information, which seems to be changing almost daily? Are you able to take that knowledge you've gained and turn it into a resource that somebody's willing to pay for? If you do, then you'd have no trouble working as a computer consultant. Or maybe you're an expert in the fundraising field. Maybe you've worked for nonprofit agencies in the past, or marketing companies, public relations, or sales, and you discovered how to raise money. If so, fundraising consulting is indeed a growth industry, so probably a good place to look. Now, what should you consider before becoming a consultant? Maybe you need to think about what certifications and special licenses you might need. And depending on your profession, you may need a special certification or license before you can even begin operating as a consultant. For example, fundraising consultants don't need a special certification, although you can become certified through the National Society of Fundraising Executives. In some states, you may need to register as a professional fundraising consultant before you're allowed to start your business. Now, are you qualified to become a consultant? Do you like to plan your day? Are you an expert when it comes to time management? If you answered yes to these questions, chances are you could be a consultant. Do I like to network? Networking is critical to the success of any type of consultant today. Begin building your network contacts immediately. And have I set long-term and short-term goals? Do they allow me to become a consultant? If your goals do not match up with your time and energy it takes to open and successfully build a consulting business, then you may want to reconsider before making any moves in this direction. So what are the top consulting businesses that are doing well today? Well, accounting, advertising, auditing, business. I mean, if you know how to help a business turn a profit and you have good business sense, you'll do well as a business consultant. After all, computer consulting, people in this field are probably the next most sought after. Business writing. Everyone knows that most business people have trouble when it comes to writing a report or a simple memo. So enter the business writing consultant and everybody's happy. Career counseling. With more and more companies downsizing, people are finding themselves without jobs, so career counselors will always be in demand. And they guide their clients into a profession or job that will make them both happy and productive as an employee. Communication consultants. They specialize in helping employees in both large and small businesses better communicate with each other, which ultimately makes the business more efficient and operates more smoothly. Computer programmer. Editorial services. Executive search and headhunter firms. Gardening, for example. In the past decade, the demand for gardening consultants has blossomed, pun intended, into $1 million a year business. Not only are businesses hiring gardening consultants, so are people who are just too busy to take care of their gardens at home. Grantsmanship is another one. If you learn how to write a grant proposal, you can name your price. Human resources. As long as businesses have people problems, and they always will, consultants in this field will never be without a job. Insurance, marketing, payroll management, public relations, publishing, taxes, writing services. Anything related to the written word will always be in demand. So finding your specialty in the writing field, once again, the sky will be the limit. So those are the top areas for consultants today that are doing really well. Now, what's your target market? Well, your idea may be the best one ever thought of, but if there's no market for your ideas, it won't matter, because somebody has to be willing to pay you for your expert advice. In other words, who are your potential clients? Will you be marketing your consulting services to large corporations? Or will you be offering a specialty that will only be of interest to smaller businesses? Perhaps your services will be sought after by nonprofit organizations. But whatever the case, before you go forward, make sure you spend time preparing both a business plan and a marketing plan. You won't be disappointed with the results, especially when clients are paying you. Now, why would an organization want to hire you? Well, according to a recent survey, here are some of the top reasons that organizations might hire consultants. One, of course, is because of your expertise. This is where it pays not only to be really good at what you've done, but you have some track record that speaks for itself. A consultant may be hired to identify problems. Sometimes employees are just too close inside of an organization to identify it, and that's when a consultant rides in on their white horse to save the day. Next, a consultant may be hired to supplement the staff. Sometimes a business discovers that it can save thousands of dollars a week by hiring consultants when they're needed, rather than hiring full-time employees. So they save on benefits, and all other kinds of peripheral expenses. So even though consultants' fees are higher generally than an employee's salary, over the long haul, it makes good economic sense to hire a consultant. A consultant may be hired to act as a catalyst. Let's face it, no one likes change, especially in corporate America. But sometimes change is needed, and a consultant may be brought in to get the ball rolling. In other words, a consultant can do things without worrying about the corporate culture or what employee morale or the personalities involved. A consultant may be hired to provide much needed objectivity. I mean, who else is more qualified to identify a problem than a consultant? A good consultant provides an objective, fresh viewpoint without worrying about what people in the organization might think or the results that are achieved. Sometimes you might get hired as a consultant to teach. Because if you're a computer consultant, for example, and you can show employees how to master a new program, then your telephone probably won't stop ringing. Now, a consultant may be asked to teach employees any number of differing skills, but a consultant must be willing to keep up with new discoveries in their field of expertise and be ready to teach new clients in order to stay competitive. Sometimes a consultant is hired to do the dirty work. Let's face it. Nobody wants to be the person who has to make cuts in their staff or eliminate an entire division. Maybe a consultant might be hired to bring new life to an organization. If you're good at coming up with new ideas that work, then you won't have any trouble finding clients. At one time or another, most businesses need someone to administer first aid to get things rolling again. And a consultant may also be hired to influence other people. Do you like to hang out with the rich and famous in your town? If so, you may hire a consultant or grab a consulting job simply based on who you are. Although most consultants in the field are working as lobbyists, there has been an increase in the number of people entering entertainment consulting. Location and employees. Now, your consulting business will probably not require large capital investment at first. In fact, if you're able to, you should probably consider working out of your home. If you do this, obviously you can save money on your rent. Now, what are the other advantages of working out of your home? You have low overhead expenses, you have more flexibility, you don't have to deal with rush hour nightmares, your office space will most likely be tax deductible. Now, the IRS has relaxed the rules for people who work at home, but check with your accountant or your income tax preparer to see if you qualify for this deduction. It's not totally straightforward. Employees. Now, when you first open your door to your consulting practice, you may be able to handle all the operations by yourself. But as your consulting business begins to grow, you may need help handling administrative details or help completing the actual consulting assignments. You'll need to make some important decisions. For example, do you have time that it takes to make labels and insert brochures into thousands of envelopes? And can you afford to spend time doing administrative tasks when you could be out marketing to your services to new clients? I mean, there are a lot of options, when it comes to time to decide if you need help with your paperwork. For example, take a quick look through the yellow pages and it'll show a number of small secretarial support firms. Rates vary, of course, depending on a number of factors, including how large or small an organization is, what type of service they need, etc. But it pays to shop around for these types of services. I mean, don't select a secretarial service just because it happens to be the lowest price. Instead, you should ask for references, and preferably from other consultants who've used their service or other small businesses. A good, reliable support service is probably worth the price in the long run. And there will come a time, however, when you may find it more cost-effective to hire someone in your office with you. Hiring a good administrative support person can mean the difference between success and failure, between obtaining more clients or constantly losing clients. There's some benefits to having someone in the office with you. If you have somebody, you can save time and money by being able to concentrate on more routine tasks. You don't need to waste time opening mail, filing, answering phones, etc. You can focus your efforts on recruiting new clients. Think about it this way. Would you want to lose a $500 a day client because you were too cheap to hire somebody to stuff your brochures into an envelope? Probably not. Also, you don't have to worry about being out of the office. If you're a one-person operation, it's hard to be on the road marketing your services if you're worried about clients calling and only getting your answering machine. You have someone to offer you another perspective, and sometimes it can be pretty lonely trying to do everything yourself. Having someone around the office during the day who can offer another perspective might be worthwhile. Income and billing. Now that you've made the decision to open your consulting business, you need to get serious about how much money you're willing to charge your clients. If you charge too little, you won't succeed in business. If you charge too much, you won't get any clients. So how do you find the middle ground that seems fair to everyone involved? Well, one way to help you decide how much to charge is to find out what the competitors' rates are. A simple phone call asking for their brochure and rates should do the trick. Then you set your rates so that you're competitive with everyone else in the community. Before setting your fees, make sure you listed all your expenses, because there's nothing worse than setting up your rates, having your clients pay you on time, and finding out that you failed to include several expenses that materialized. Now, this brings up an important point. Remember, every job you take from a client, include a miscellaneous line item in your fee proposal, but don't pad the miscellaneous figure to make additional income. Most clients will understand that every project, there'll no doubt be additional expenses, but just be sure everyone knows up front what the approximate figure for those expenses will be. Before you set your rates, find out what other consultants in your community are charging for their services. Once again, sometimes a simple phone call to another consultant's office asking what the fees are will get you the answers you need. Or you may have a friend call and ask for their brochure, or any additional information that they can collect regarding fees and pricing. Now, if you live in a small town and there are no other consultants in your field, well then rejoice, be glad, but set your fees still at a reasonable level. When setting your rates, you have several options, including hourly rates, project fees, working on a retainer basis. So let's look at some more closely. Hourly fees. Now you need to tread carefully here when setting hourly fees because two things can happen. Your hourly rate could be so high that no one can afford you, therefore no client will ever knock on your door, or your hourly rate is so low that nobody takes you seriously. Keep one important rule in mind when establishing your fee. No matter which structure you decide on, the more money people pay for a product or service, the more they expect to get for their money. In other words, if a client agrees to your hourly rate of $400, well, you better give them $400 worth of service, because that client wants every hour to work for them, and they want to get their value out of every hour. Now, some clients prefer to be billed on an hourly basis, but others hate the idea of paying someone for what they perceive to be too much per hour. Those clients usually prefer to pay by project. So let's talk about project rates versus retainer basis. When working on a project rate basis, a consultant normally gets a fixed amount of money for a predetermined period of time. Working on a retainer basis, you set a monthly fee in which you agree to be available to work for an agreed upon number of hours for your clients. While in the ideal world, you'd have a dozen or so clients to which pay you a hefty sum each month, So and they only call you for a few hours here and there. But don't get your hopes up. Most companies hire a consultant on a retainer basis. They usually have a clause in their contract that prohibits them from working for their competitors. Now, working and getting paid in this method certainly has its advantages. You're guaranteed income each month, and when you're starting out on your consulting business, cash flow can be a problem. Now, some consultants actually offer a percentage reduction in their fees, and if a client will agree to pay a monthly retainer fee, the average income when a consultant is paid on a retainer basis is usually around $3,500, but obviously it varies tremendously depending on where you live, the type of consulting gig, etc. Now, marketing. If your consulting business has no clients, then you have no consulting business. So you have to remember that selling your consulting service is not the same as selling a car or a house. In the case of a car or a house, the customer is probably already in the market for one or both of these products. Your job then becomes harder because you're marketing your services to people who may not even be aware that they need those services. Very true for coaching. There are a variety of methods you need to become familiar with, to be comfortable with, in order to begin attracting and keeping clients. Let's look at some of the more conventional ones that are being used today. Now, first, let's talk about brochure basics. There are 5 issues your brochure should address. They are: it should clearly convey what your services are. It should tell your customers why you're the best. It should give a few reasons why you should be hired. It should include some brief biographical information, and should include some information about who your other clients are. Now that's it. Keep it simple, but do it right. Remember, your brochure represents you in the marketplace, so make sure you polish it before you send it into action, because your entire consulting career may depend on it. Cold calling. Everyone has to do whatever it takes to make things work, and cold calling may be part of that process. If you have to cold call, here are a few tricks you can use to make cold calling a little easier for you. First, you should always prepare your script ahead of time. Spell out word for word what you expect to say when you get someone on the phone. Remember, though, that your goal is to get face-to-face interviews and eventually new clients. So before you end up stumbling over your sales presentation, either in person or on the telephone, write yourself a script and practice it over and over again until you really know it. Be creative in your efforts to reach the decision maker. Because most times you'll encounter a secretary or an administrative assistant who has years of experience turning away cold callers like you. But don't give up. Don't let any obstacle stand in your way. To avoid being screened out by the secretary, try calling early before they're on the job. It's best to call before 8 or after 5 p.m. Because at these times, chances are the decision maker will be there and they'll be the one picking up the phone. Now, you should always limit your cold calls to just several days each month. And look forward to those days. Make sure you put your best effort into the process. In that way, not only will it become easier for you to make those calls, but you'll find yourself actually looking forward to them. Advertising. The limits placed on advertising your consulting services are usually directly tied to your budget. How much money do you have to spend? Now, if you're lucky enough to have a very healthy advertising budget, remember, you don't have to spend every penny of it on ads just because you have it. Because advertising can be pretty expensive. For many businesses, the best form of advertising has been word of mouth and recommendations from other people. Now, depending on the type of services you offer, it may be necessary to advertise in specialized trade journals or magazines before you spend any money. And you probably should start looking through professional journals and newspapers relative to the field you specialize in. Make sure to take some time and examine ads that have been placed by other consultants, and then carefully determine how effective you think their ads may be. Then design one that suits you best. Another idea is use newsletters. Whatever your consulting field is, you should have more than enough information to produce a newsletter as a means of attracting potential clients. Now, if you don't have time or don't feel comfortable self-publishing your own newsletter, just hire a local freelance writer and a graphic designer to do the job for you. Again, you don't have to make it an expensive 4-color glossy publication. The simpler you keep it, the better. A good newsletter will sell itself based on the content rather than a splashy design. You should start collecting newsletters that are being published in your consulting field. Now, if you think none are being published, or if you think there are only a few in your field, guess again. A quick visit to the library will reveal several newsletter directories. You've got the Oakbridge Directory of Newsletters, and you've got the Hudson's Newsletter Directory, which lists by subject newsletters that are published not only in the US, but also in other countries. So take some time and write some sample copies before you design and write the first issue of your own newsletter. You'll be surprised at the quality of the newsletters that are being produced today. And newsletters can be an effective means of communicating, and in my opinion, represent the best advertising media for a consultant to sell their services. Think about it. The next time you receive a newsletter in the mail, did you put it aside to read it later? And why did you do that? Probably because you wanted to make sure you weren't missing any important news or information. How about that brochure you received in the mail the same day? Did you put that aside to read later? Or did that go directly into the circular file? Think about this before you spend big bucks on glitzy brochures that you may not even read. Another way to get clients is public speaking. Public speaking is an excellent way to recruit new clients and also earn a reputation for excellence in your community. Now, unless you live in a small town that doesn't have a Chamber of Commerce or a Lions Club or a Rotary Club or other similar organization, you can begin offering your services as a speaker for luncheons, dinners, on any other special occasion. In addition to using the phone directory, see if anyone else has published a directory of service organizations in your community. You can visit the library and ask at the reference desk. Go through and make a list of organizations that hold monthly meetings and therefore may be used for guest speakers. Contact each group and offer your public speaking services. And finally, don't forget to ask for referrals. This often overlooked method of finding clients is such an easy marketing tool, which is probably why people don't think of it, that you'll kick yourself for not thinking of it yourself. When you've finished your consulting assignment and your client's in seventh heaven and undoubtedly singing your praises, it's an excellent time to ask for a referral. Simply send a note or short letter asking for the names of any colleagues, friends, or business associates that might be a good prospect for your consulting services. Of course, ask their permission first to mention their name, and then write to people whose names that they pass on to you. Sometimes all it takes is a mutual friend or respected business associate to get the potential client's attention. Anyway, that's it for today for opening a consulting business. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. I will be back next time with, I don't know what we'll talk about next time. But anyway, until then, make it a great day.